On her
Oh, the
wedding day,
shame.
the most beautiful
Look at the
bride in the
food.
village refused a thirsty
What will
beggar
the
a
village
simple
say?
sip of water.
Oh,
Moments
the
later,
shame.
her entire feast
Look at the
turned to
food.
dust. This is the
What will
story
the
of the
village
bride
say?
who mocked the poor.
Oh, the
Wait until you see
shame.
what happens when the
Look
bride
at the
refuses the
food.
beggar a sip of water.
What will
Our
the village
entire
say?
wedding feast turns to dust. Stick around because this story isn't just about a curse, it's a lesson the ancestors have been trying to teach for generations. Don't blink or you miss the moment that changes everything. If this is the first time you come across my video, please don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and share. The drums of Komba village shook the red earth that morning, and the sun rose brighter than it had in weeks, as if even the heavens wished to witness the wedding of Adando, the most admired maiden in 3 kingdoms. Her beauty was the kind that made women whisper and men forget their names, and her parents swelled with pride as traders, chiefs, and distant relatives poured into their compound, bearing gifts wrapped in raffia. Beneath the canopy of palm leaves, garlands of hibiscus and lemongrass danced in the breeze, while goats bleated, musicians tuned their chorus, and the scent of pepper stew filled the air. It was a feast worthy of a princess. Yet, with beauty came pride, and with pride came a tongue sharper than a spear. Adando scoffed at the young girls who tried to carry her gifts, snapped at the elders who blessed her union, and rolled her eyes when her mother told her to smile humbly. "What need have I for humility?" she muttered, adjusting her golden head wrap. "Am I not the jewel of Komba? All the land has gathered to admire me." No one dared answer, for her wedding day shimmered like a jewel, and no one wished to stain it with conflict. As the dancers stomped and the griots sang of ancient heroes, a frail old beggar hobbled into the compound, leaning on a crooked walking stick. His back burned like a dead branch, his wrapper torn, and his voice rasped like stones grinding together. "A sip of water, child," he whispered to Adando, who sat fanning herself beneath the baobab tree. "The road is long and my throat is dry." At first, the nearby guests ignored him, then frowned in annoyance, for his presence threatened the wedding's perfection. Adando glared at the old man as though he were a stain upon her crown. "Water? Go to the river if you thirst," she snapped. "Do not spoil my wedding with your misery." The beggar lifted his eyes, and for a moment they glowed with something ancient, older than the baobab tree, older than the village itself. But Adando, too caught in her pride, did not notice. The beggar bowed his head once and shuffled away, while the guests murmured uneasily, for refusing water to a thirsty soul was no small offense in Konga. As the beggar disappeared beyond the gate, the sky dimmed, as if clouds were being stitched together by invisible hands. The drums faltered, the dancers slowed, and a chill rippled across the crowd. Old Grandmother Nya, toothless and small but wise as the river, leaned toward Adando's father and whispered, "A beggar who arrives uninvited is never merely a beggar. Ancestors often disguise themselves to test our hearts." But the father waved her off, desperate to keep the ceremony glittering and undisturbed. Inside the cooking hut, pots simmered with yam porridge and goat stew, while giant wooden platters overflowed with roasted plantains, smoked fish, and millet cakes glazed with honey. The cooks bragged that no wedding in Komba's history had seen such a feast. Children peeked through the doorway, mouths watering, while the bride's family boasted loudly of their generosity. But the sky continued to darken, and the wind carried a sound that was not thunder, but whispers, ancestral, distant, and growing closer. When the moment came to serve the feast, the guests gathered around the long wooden tables, ready to devour the steaming dishes before them. But as each lifted a morsel to their mouths, something impossible happened. The yam porridge crumbled into grey ash, the honeyed cakes dissolved into dust, the roasted goat crackled and fell apart like the bones of an ancient corpse. Gasps erupted from the crowd as cups of palm wine turned to dry sand that poured between trembling fingers. Even the children cried out, for hunger does not understand curses. Then a thunderous voice rolled across the compound, not from the sky, not from any living chest, but from every ancestor who had ever walked the soil of Kumba. Water is life, the voice boomed, and she who mocks the thirsty mocks the spirits. In that instant, the beggar reappeared, standing tall and ageless, clothed not in rags, but in robes of white smoke and ancestral gold. His cane was no longer crooked wood, but a staff carved with symbols of the dead. Adando collapsed to her knees as her wedding jewels rattled like frightened insects. The ancestral spirit gazed at the trembling bride, and though his eyes held power, they did not hold anger, only disappointment. Beauty fades and riches crumble, but kindness endures beyond the grave. A sip of water given freely to the thirsty is worth more than all the gifts of a wedding feast. Adando wiped, her tears dripping onto the dusty platters that had once been food. She opened her mouth to beg forgiveness, but words stuck to her throat like dry leaves. No apology could reverse what pride had begun. When the spirit vanished, the sky brightened once more, but the feast remained dust and the drums refused to sing again. The wedding continued, but joy never returned to it. And from that day forward in Kumba, no traveler, beggar or wanderer was turned away thirsty. Mothers told their daughters, "Give water even before food," and griots sang of Adando's pride for generations so others might learn the lesson without leaving the curse. For even the ancestors thirst, not for drink, but for kindness. If it's your wedding, what will you do? Let me know in the comment section. And also, if this story touched your heart, don't forget to drop a comment in the comment section. See you in my next video.